Give thanks. Yeah, man. Jah David, Zion High Productions, Zion High Kings. Bless.
Yes, I greetings. This is Tippy from Grade Records, St. Croix, VI.
Greetings, this is Moon Bain, Digital Ancient, Lustre Kings Productions, representing.
Jah David, what was your introduction into reggae?
Bob Marley, from a young age, probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old, probably something like that. I think my older brother listened to Bob before me, and then I started hearing him on rock and roll station regular, you know. And then shortly thereafter, I rented a Reggae Sunsplash VHS video from the public library where I'm from. And yeah, just kind of opened me up from that's before 10, you know.
When did you learn how to play music?
First instrument was violin. I was probably around 9 or 10. And I played that for a year or so in school, and then transitioned to guitar from that, and then bass from there.
I think the first reggae album that I really delved into was Earth Crisis by Steel Pulse. This is in the early 80s. Yeah, my father somehow, who's a big music buff of all kind of music, but not necessarily reggae all the time, but he had this cassette and we were on a trip and we listened to it front to back over and over, and it just had me mesmerized. And from then it's a love of reggae that, of course, Bob Marley, a lot of the UK bands were very inspirational to I, like Aswad, and you know, the heavy dub producers, the heavy roots producers like Yabby U and Linval Thompson, Augustus Pablo, all started to really develop a love of reggae in me that didn't really bust out into playing music until I was about 20 years old, actually. I picked up my first real instrument at the age of 20, hand drums, followed by acoustic guitar, then keyboard, then drum machine, then recording, and you know, the rest went on and on, but pretty much self-taught. Yeah.
So prior to that, you were in college, right?
Yeah, I was in college when I started playing music. I was at Harvard in Boston, and I was an athlete and a student before that, so I didn't really have the space and time for music. But when it came to me, it was like a calling. It was something no one invited me, no one asked me about it. It just felt like I needed to learn an instrument. So I saw an advertisement for a hand drumming class and I took it. And it was a good introduction to music, reggae music, especially because of timing and rhythm. And to this day, rhythm as a rhythm guitarist and keyboard player is my main love of playing reggae. So that's how it started.
My first reggae album that I purchased was Burning Spear, Man in the Hills, vinyl. And probably around 10, 11, 12. And I was into all kinds of music, but the cover art mesmerized me and took it home, and the album just changed my life, you know? And I think from that point I grabbed Tribute to the Martyrs from Steel Pulse. And I just had that sucker on repeat. It was a cassette, you know? And then from there, I got Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and kind of more popular reggae music and started, you know, just really absorbing it all. But I grew up playing music. I grew up from 4. I played the cello. I played the classical music. I played in the Seattle Youth Symphony Orchestra. And then, you know, that was probably like till about 10 or 11, and hip hop came in, and I started totally getting absorbed with hip hop and rapping. I was into rapping. I had a crew So we started Tippy I Moon, and then
Yes,
that kind of moved into scrounging for records because we were getting into making our own tracks too as youths and listening and what was exciting. And I remember feeling like looking for stuff to sample, and that's what brought me kind of to purchase Man in the Hills.
iGrade, most people know straight away, is based out in St. Croix. Where are Lustre Kings and Zion High based? Let's start with let's start with Moon. Where did Lustre Kings originate?
Yeah, Lustre Kings really was kind of, well, Jamaica and Oakland. Corin, my partner in Lustre Kings, based in Oakland. He went to JA to teach. And I was in Providence, Rhode Island at the time.
Oh.
And this was like mid 90s, late 90s. And
Right.
Corin came forward from Yard after like teaching school there, had a 7-inch record. He had bought a track off Bobby Digital and produced a record. And I remember I was already using the MPC. I was making beats. You know, I was into production in preliminary, like early stuff like Cakewalk and Sonar, like early MPC, you know what I mean? And then I was like, oh, I can make something like this, you know? And then I was in Providence and he was in Oakland. But then we started to meet up because we started manufacturing 7-inch records, and we started to meet up in Brooklyn, run around Brooklyn, Queens, New York City, kind of hustling 7-inch records with our production. So it was kind of bi-coastal between New York, Providence, because we weren't selling records in Providence clearly, but Oakland, and then going back and forth to Yard. That was the first Lustre Kings productions.
Where did the name Lustre Kings come from?
Originally, that was a parking. We all used to skateboard in Seattle. We grew up, you know, skating around the city. Me and a crew of friends, and that was the name of a parking garage that we all used to have the best rail slides in, do the best tricks. It had the curved wall on, so we used to all par there and, you know, skate. And that was the name of the parking garage, Lustre Kings. And after that, we kind of got into some esoteric readings about the luster and the aura of, you know, the spiritual divine aura being related to the luster and the what you're emitting, and that kind of took us to the path to call the label Lustre Kings Productions.
Your first material was pressed here, but the vast majority of it was pressed in Jamaica. So what was the ease and or difficulty of pressing material in Jamaica and having it facilitated in between the two territories?
Yeah, it was a challenge at times, for sure. We mostly pressed in Jamaica, really.
Right.
We did a CD called Culture Them. That was the first kind of thing we did up here, manufacturers of various artists. CD, right. The CDs were popping then, so. But the tracks that compiled on the CD, a lot of them had released on 7-inch. And we worked with various pressing and distribution, Cal Cassini, you know, all kind of different places that pressed and also distributed all over the world out of Jamaica. So that was the advantage of us basically rendezvousing, doing the session, getting the DAT tape after the mixes, taking it to the manufacturer and getting the, you know, getting the lacquers made, everything like that in Jamaica.
Right.
As we proceeded, we did do some creative things with, there was another press plant in Tennessee. I can't remember the name now, but
United.
Yeah. So we did stuff with United and Rainbow, and we didn't do this too often, but there was a couple occasions where we were able to press here and have, in the labels, we didn't even think about it, and it was like a blessing in disguise, because the first time we did it, it said, because we just used the same labels from our you know, the stamp that said made in Jamaica.
Right.
And when we got to customs, because it said made in Jamaica, even though we had pressed it in Tennessee, 500 copies or whatever, we brought in 200 copies because we could only carry so much. We didn't get taxed, and we got in, and we were able to send distribution that way. They're like, oh, it was made. And we didn't really realize it until we were there at the gate, you know what I mean? So, you know, Jah worked, but that was, but then we from that point, we're like, oh, well, we can't really press here and bring it into the yard. So let's just continue to go make music, manufacture in Jamaica, so.
Okay, Jah David, where is Zion High Productions based?
Yeah, it started in 2003 in San Diego, right? Ross Elliott, who owned a record store at the time called Trade Roots Reggae. It was like a cornerstone reggae spot and Rastafari culture spot in San Diego for like 25, 30 years or so. And I worked there, and the two of we and my brethren Jah Oil and Kwashi started a label. Jah Oil ended up leaving, and I left San Diego for Fort Lauderdale before we even released our first project. So the first project was Yami Bolo Revolution, and by the time it released, I was already living in Florida. And from then until now, we're based in Florida.
Explain to us the history of the beginnings of iGrade.
Yeah, man. Well, iGrade Records was founded in 2001, as you said, and by myself and my brethren Kenyatta Itola. My bass player, co-producer, brethren, still my brethren. He's based out in California now, but he's from DC, and we originally linked up in New York City when I was a teacher. I was a middle school teacher in East Harlem for 4 years, from 96 to 2000. And pretty much every day after school, he and I would link to make beats. And this wasn't with any goal of releasing music. It was just because we love music, we love reggae music, and we love creating. And that was kind of the spirit for the start of iGrade. It wasn't launched to say, let's start a label. It was, we have some music to put out, which was Nemo Zion Rasta, the first album that we did with Midnight, Vaughn Benjamin. And we needed a vehicle to put it out. So we started the label and brainstormed on names. And, you know, the slogan for iGrade is the highest grade is iGrade. And the reason for that is it's the oneness. The I, as you know, Selassie I is the first, the oneness. That is all humanity, all of the entire universe. And you can't get higher than that unity. So, you know, it made sense, and we flowed with it and started releasing music. And initially at a very fast pace. I think the first 12 months we released 3 albums: Nemo Zion Rasta, Fire by Desiree, and Asini by Midnight as well. So, and from there it just kept going. And I think we're 36 albums in now after years. Good times.
I was always curious about the logo of the label. Who designed it?
That was my brethren Adonijah, who maybe Moon or Daddy Lion Chandel remember. He was a New York fixture. He had a company called Prodigal Sons and Daughters. They made t-shirts and various things. And Adonijah came up with the logo on his own, and it's the perfect logo for I because we have an ancient modern sound. You know, Moon is the digital ancient. It's kind of the same idea that we're in the modern technology, which is represented by the headphones, and the anciency of the drum together. So, you know, it's that duality of, you know, ancient and modern at the same time, which kind of describes the sound, I think, for all 3 of us, really. You know, we definitely have a deep reverence for the past, but we don't get stuck in the past. See what I'm saying? Very progressive, and always trying to create in the now, you know? So that's why the logo makes a lot of sense.
And like what you said, the ancient thing, it looked like something I've seen before.
Right? Yeah, and the way the brethren's locks are flying through the air, and it's a mystic image. So I'm very thankful to my brethren Adonijah for that logo.
Catches your eye and it makes the grade.
Yes,
Yeah, man. Brother Moon, uh, please explain how the name Digital Ancient, how this came about for you.
This is the first kind of production moniker, that I used, like an alias, when we were doing Lustre Kings. You see very first Lustre Kings records say produced by King Corn and Digital Ancient.
Right.
And similar, similar to what Tippy is explaining, is feeling the anciency, feeling the root and the lineage of His Majesty and the root of the foundation of our African heritage, and being in a modern studio and in a modern format of making music and expressing that connection to our ancestors through the medium and the tools that are available to us now. That's really, it's hit me like Digital Ancient, and boom,
So between 01 and 03, maybe 04, it almost seemed like an overnight state. I'm talking about the proliferation of VI Roots, VIRoots.com, and the expansion, the overall expansion of iGrade, and now what ultimately became a roots movement of Rasta messengers, more specifically, not limited to necessarily, but more specifically and very, very focused on those from St. Croix and the Virgin Islands. So explain, and Midnight ultimately planted the seed, but
yeah, man.
But explain that period of time when the expansion really started.
Yeah, that was like a golden age in VI reggae history and music. Just to kind of correct you, VI reggae goes much deeper than Midnight even. It started, some of the first reggae artists in the VI started releasing music in the late 70s. Actually, Vaughn and Ronnie's father was one of the first reggae musicians to release vinyl albums in the Virgin Islands in the early 80s. Another man by the name of Ras Abijah, I think he had the very first VI reggae album in 1979. So there is a tradition and a history already. And Midnight Band is formed in '89 as a band playing mostly covers, actually. A lot of people don't know Midnight started playing mostly Bob Marley covers, Black Uhuru covers, even a lot of soul music. If you know Vaughn's voice, you know he has a very soulful voice. And the first few years, they were a cover band playing at beach bars in St. Croix for the most part. But throughout the 90s, of course, Vaughn's intellect is unlike anything else on earth. And he started really delving into songwriting and recording music. They went up to Washington, D.C. in 95, I believe, and stayed there for about 5 years. And that's where they recorded their first two albums, Unpolished and Ras Make Peace. Ras Make Peace came out in 99. And then they came home in 2000. And that really sparked a what I call this little golden age of about 4 or 5 years, where there was album after album after album and all kind of new artists, artists like Abja, Nayora, Pressure, Jaman, Ras Army, Ras Attitude, Batch, Maranile, like a whole stable of artists coming out. And one thing Vaughn used to always talk about was that there was never any hierarchy or any union or structure, but somehow everybody was singing the same song. Everybody was chanting consciousness. Not one slack lyric, not one artist trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator. Everybody on the same page, so to speak, but with different voices. So it was a special period. And VIRoots.com is a website that my wife and I started to distribute the music. And these were the good old days of CDs, selling CDs. And these would sell, and this is how we fed our families, right, Moon? CD sales. So, for a good 10 years, VIRoots.com was able to sell a lot of CDs and distribute and promote artists. And VI reggae kind of got a reputation, and a lot of it got associated with Midnight as the VI sound or the St. Croix sound. But it's actually even more diverse than that. It's not as simple as Deep Roots, because the production houses have all kind of styles. Dean Pond is another great St. Croix producer who has a very different sound than Ronnie Benjamin or myself.
Dean is our papa. Like Dean is a sonic.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
He's the
That's
master.
our mentor.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. He's a drummer, engineer, live sound engineer for the best of the best right now in the industry. But he started out playing in reggae music, playing with Culture. He was Culture's drummer for many years. And
That's why that name sounded familiar.
that's right.
Yeah.
He intro Pressure to Don Corleone, which turned into Love and Affection. You know,
Definitely want to get to that later on, because that was a historical moment for I Grade. So all of a sudden he explodes from the what you could say the Jamaican grassroots with Love and
Yeah,
Affection.
he went the route of Jamaica. You know, Midnight never went the route of trying to bust Jamaica. Pressure was the first VI artist to get a #1 song in Jamaica. Probably the only VI artist to have a #1 song in Jamaica. And
Yeah.
a major breakthrough for all of us from the VI. But like you, even a lot of people assumed Pressure was from St. Thomas, Jamaica, because of course Jamaica has a parish called St.
Yeah.
you know, I never thought about that.
A lot of people thought that, but that was a special time, and that's when I first linked with Moon. Actually, it was the early 2000s. We were both in and around New York, and then Jah D, we made the link on Ras Attitude's first album. So it was a really special time. You know, it goes through ebbs and flows in my 23 years in music, and you know that was a special time. We're kind of in another special time right now, so I'm glad you caught us right now together, because it's a lot of music coming out right now.